Hello and welcome to the editorial analysis of the Hindu. Today we shall be discussing the editorial of the 17th of September. So coming to the first article, Undesirable and Divisive. The context here is that the 14th of September is what is celebrated as the Hindi Divas, and it is in this particular context that the Union Home Minister Mr. Amit Shah has made some statements which have called for making Hindi the national language, and these kind of statements are what have been made by him. And this is what has resulted in a scenario where a lot of objections are being raised by linguistic states. All of that is what is important, and that is why this article has been written. So coming to the analysis, first and foremost, there is a call for making Hindi as a unifying force. The idea is of one nation, one language. Now, the analysis that is important here is that is Hindi, or for that matter, only a language one characteristic that can unify a country as huge and as diverse as India? Clearly, that is not the case. For a country that is as diverse as India, the unifying factor is the sense of nationalism that we have towards our nation. It is the common culture that we all have. These are the unifying factors, and it is a spirit of India which allows every single person to express him or herself in whatever way one likes. This freedom is what is helping India stay as a unified nation, rather than any one particular reason, one religion, or for that matter one language in this particular case. So that is the first case that is run against this idea of using Hindi as a language to unify India. So that is what is important. Another thing that is important is that in India, this reorganization of states is done on linguistic basis, and that is why these states are now much more powerful, and they have stood against these kind of ideas being propagated by the central government. Also, regional languages are what are important in these states. These regional languages are the state languages in these states, and therefore they have their own importance, and Hindi is what cannot be forced upon as a top-down approach in these particular states. So that is important. Another thing that is important here is with regards to the national education policy. Now basically, under the NEP, what was important was that there was a paragraph that asserted that Hindi language will be compulsorily taught in all the schools of India. This is what was objected to, and now this paragraph is what was removed. So that is another piece of information which the editorial is offering to us. Another thing that is important here is in the context of diversity of India. Now India is known for its diversity. Diversity is one of the characters of India. We are known for our plural ethos. We are known for having a cauldron of all many languages as well as cultures. So this is the spirit that India stands for, and this is what should be propagated. And the idea of one language, one nation is somehow not successful, will never be successful in a country like India, and that is what is the gist of this particular article. So that is the entire analysis here. The question on this is what is read, but nevertheless, if you have a question on discussing diversity of India, such kind of questions do come. Definitely this becomes an important issue. Otherwise, UPSC will tend to avoid these kind of political questions. So that's about this particular article. Coming to the next article, Avoidable boat tragedy. Now this is context with regards to a recent boat tragedy which has taken place in the state of Andhra Pradesh, particularly in the river Godavari. This has resulted in 8 people who are already dead and 37 people who are missing. So this is what is indeed a tragedy, and that is why it calls for an analysis. Now the analysis here first and foremost is with regards to tourism in India, which is irresponsible. No doubt tourism is one of the most important sectors in India which can generate revenue for the nation. Many states are relying solely on tourism, but the issue here is that the tourism that is developing in India is developing in an irresponsible manner. The pattern here that is being followed is such that no regulation is being ensured here. For example, just few years back there was a case of a similar case in Manali where a number of students from Hyderabad had drowned. Now again, this is what is being seen in this particular case, because what has happened is that these people who are traveling and who have drowned here were tourists, and they were actually traveling on a crew just to explore the nearby beauty of the region, and the crew that was taking them was not experienced. Also, they did not have valid licenses. This was a private crew, and also what is important is that the life jackets as a basic precaution were also not worn by many people. So this is what has resulted in this kind of a tragedy, and that is what has been discussed here. Another thing that is important is the issue of lack of coordination. Now basically in these issues what happens is then a number of areas are what are dispersed under different departments. For instance, in the case of this river, there are multiple departments. There is the Department of Irrigation, there is the Department of Ports, and therefore a number of areas come under different departments, and regulation is becoming difficult, and that is one of the causes for such kind of tragedies to take place, and that is what is important. Another thing that the editorial is discussing, that how these are man-made tragedies, and how man-made tragedies in India what are increasing at an alarming regularity, which is a cause of concern, be it these tragedies where there is drowning that is taking place, or other tragedies where there are forest fires that is taking place, or for that matter there are some other tragedies where buildings are collapsing. All of these are reflecting the issue of man-made tragedies which need to be avoided. So that is what is the entire analysis of this particular article. In disaster management, you can have a question on man-made tragedies, and if you do have a question, you must always make sure to give an example that is very, very recent, that is going to link your current affairs knowledge with the core aspects of your analysis, and that is what will be rewarded. So that's how you have to use this particular article. Coming to the next article, the slow climb to trillion economy peak. Now the context here is with regards to economic slowdown. Almost every day we are having an article on the economic slowdown that India is facing. So that is what is the context. Coming to the analysis, first and foremost you need to know about the goals of India. The primary goal of India is to become a $5 trillion economy by the year 2024. This is a call that has been given by the Prime Minister himself on the event of the Independence Day. So that is the first thing that you should know. Some other goals also we need to achieve. For example, if you disperse this $5 trillion economy goal, then it spreads into different type of developmental goals. For example, we need to improve the education, we need to improve the health of our people, we need to ensure that overall human development is what does take place, human capital formation is what should take place, there should be expansion and productive employment for all, and environment sustainable development is what should take place. All of these are the goals that India has set for itself, and that is the first important analysis here. The second issue that is important as of now in the current scenario is the economic divide that India is facing. There is a huge amount of gap that is generating between the rich and the poor. The 10% of India's richest are having wealth approximately 4 times that of the 90% of India. So this is what is showing that how the economic divide is what is increasing, and even if we reach the goal of this 5 trillion economy, even if our goal is what is reached, it should be taking place in a manner which is more equitable, rather than all the wealth being generated and garnered by few and the others remaining poor. So that is one analysis which has been given. The third issue in the context of our economy is the unemployment rate. We all know that India is at the doorstep of its demographic dividend, but what is appearing as of now is that unemployment rate is at a 45-year high, and it is appearing that this might turn into a demographic disaster. So that is one thing that the editorial is warning about. Another thing that the editorial is talking about here is in the context of India's education system. Now basically here the editorial is saying that the literacy rate of India was 71.1% in the year 2050, and this has almost stagnated since then. It has not improved. Not only that, the quality of education in India is one of the poorest. The ASER reports time and again highlight that a 5th standard student is not able to read text from a 2nd standard textbook. So all of this is reflecting the poor quality of education in India. And the government in India is spending only 4% on education. 4% of the GDP is what is spent on education, whereas the target is that of 6%. Now these kind of figures, that 6% is what should be the target for spending on education, and 3% is what should be the target for spending on GDP on health. All of these facts and figures are something that you should always remember. You should have them somewhere written down so that you can repeatedly memorize them, you can remember them, and thereby you can use them in your answers. So that is how you have to use these points and these kind of an analysis. So that is what is important. Another thing that is important here is in the context of the health sector. Again, this is one area where India needs to improve. The health of our people is what is not meeting global standards on many areas. The health of our citizens is what is poor. So that is what needs to be improved. Even here in the context of economy, what has been spoken is that the government needs to improve its health expenditure by 2-3% of the GDP, which at present is only 1.5% of the GDP. So all of this is what is again going to require that economy should perform well, so that is important. The environment should perform well is another concern for India. The environmental depletion is what is taking place, which is a cause of concern. There is a depletion of resources. Also, the recent IPCC report has warned us against climate change, so that is one issue. So for this protection of this, again, economic improvement is what is required, which is again a challenge in the context of the economic slowdown. Now, another thing that has been discussed here are some challenges that the economy is facing. The primary challenge is that the savings and investment rates in the economy have reduced. The credit is what has reduced. This is primarily because of the stress that banks are facing because of the NPA. And particularly the demand in the economy has fallen. Automobile industry is facing stress. Other industries like textile industry, diamond industries, the MSME industries, all of these are facing stress. This is what has been talked about in this editorial. So these are the major challenges that India is facing. If we even analyze the agriculture sector, there is a crisis in the context of the agriculture sector. The wages of the farmers are minimal as of now. And when wages are what are going to be low, obviously demand is not going to be generated. There will be a crash in the aggregate demand, and this is going to impact the rural economy. There is a need for infrastructure in agriculture. There is a need for inputs in agriculture, extensions in agriculture, marketing in agriculture, storage and training, also to increase the wages of the farmers. All of this will require the economy to perform well, which is going to be challenged in the context of the economic slowdown. So that is one analysis. And lastly, the most important analysis. The editorial is giving us some analysis. We have discussed these articles as to what all are the steps that the government has taken. The government has taken steps. For instance, it has taken back some of the budgeted tax proposals. It has provided a stimulus package to industries. It has raised the FDI flows in the country. It has reduced the GST taxes to help industries. And all of this is what is done by the government in an attempt to improve the economy. But the problem is that all of this is going to increase the supply of money in the economy. The challenge is not that of supply. The real problem is of the demand in economy. Even if you will increase in industrial investments as well as industrial output, if people are not going to buy, the economy will not work. For example, in the automobile sector, it is not that cars cannot be produced. Yes, they can be produced. The people are not willing to buy it, which is the major problem. So what needs to improve is the demand side has to be worked upon. How can the demand side work upon? When agricultural crisis is solved, when the wealth of the people is going to increase, demand will increase. Unemployment rate has to be tackled here. Education and health sector has to be worked upon. These are the solutions to this particular problem, is what is being advocated in this particular article, and that is how you have to analyze it. You have to extract these points and present them in your answers also. So this is a relevant article, very, very useful. Economic slowdown is what is something that is being called the worst of its kind after independence itself. That is what the editorial is claiming. So these kind of issues become important because of the sheer importance of the fact that they are taking place after so many years. That is why this kind of an economic trend and analysis is what is going to be important. But nevertheless, you should also talk about some positive aspects of the economy. Don't make your answer all very negative. So that is one suggestion that I would like to offer to you. So that's about this particular article, and that's about our discussion today. I thank you all for watching the video.